This is Secret America with your hosts, Jack Danger and James Clary.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jack Danger along with James Clary. And James, there has been an unbelievable amount of hostility towards, people like Elon Musk and others that have gotten to the point now where they actually believe that they're going to be killed. I mean, Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan the other day, and he said that this kind of thing, the things that he's doing right now with Doge, he can't even reveal how people are actually getting this money other than the insider trading things. He's actually afraid to reveal everything because he doesn't want to be killed. I mean, I want to play something for you real quick, James, and I want your opinion on it. It's a short video. Tim Burchett actually says that the Pentagon will have people killed. So take a listen to this and then tell me what you think.
You have a Pentagon that has billions of dollars that they hide. We don't ask for any accounting of. They never pass an audit. In the history of audits, I've often said the only way we're really going to get to the bottom of this is somebody's going to walk out of one of these labs with this information and puts it out on the internet before they commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head 5 times.
And then look at this real quick. This is the last one, and then this ties into that.
It's a lot more than insider trading.
The way they're acquiring wealth.
Correct.
And what other methods?
I mean, this is really going to get me assassinated. It's like I'm not lengthening my lifespan by explaining this stuff, to say the least. I mean, I was supposed to go back to D.C. How am I going to survive? This fucker's going to kill me for sure. In fact, I do think it's like I actually have to be careful that I don't push too hard on the corruption stuff because it's going to get me killed.
And James, they are absolutely right. So what do you think about that?
Well, have you been following the Act Blue money laundering scheme?
Oh yeah, there's so many of them.
Well, this is the main vehicle by which Democrats, primarily Democrats, I know there's a Republican side to it. I don't want to let them off the hook, but Act Blue is a Democrat PAC, and they've been laundering money. This is taxpayer money, Jack, and we're talking billions and getting it back to Democrat lawmakers. And what they found in these just preliminary investigations is that they use the names of elderly people to launder money. They'd interview like some 80-year-old man who had sent $25 to Act Blue. Then in the ensuing months, he donated $25,000 with 480 different donations. It was all a scheme, but it was taxpayer money. There are, let me see, I think there's 10 different state attorneys generals investigating Act Blue right now. I think that's what Elon Musk is talking about. It is look, the whole cabal is crumbling, Jack. As a matter of fact, the most recent news is that the top 10 officials at Act Blue have resigned and or shut down their emails. This is crazy. I mean, we do this show every week, Jack. The stuff we talked about last week, you'd think, well, it can't get any crazier than that, right? And here we are. It's absolutely insane. Dude, the Democrats have been stealing billions from the U.S. taxpayers. That's you and me, and they've been doing it for decades, Jack.
You're absolutely right. And I think people forget, they don't realize how much billions of dollars is, because nobody's ever seen that kind of money. They don't understand how much money that really is. And one of the ways that they've been doing that is through Ukraine. And Sam Fried Bankman, or whatever his name is, there we go. He was the head of FTX, which was this cryptocurrency exchange. And what would happen was we would send our taxpayer money. Well, the Democrats would vote for sending funding to Ukraine. Ukraine would keep half that money for their war, whatever, and whatever else. But then they would send the other half to FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. And what would happen there is he would run it through that cryptocurrency exchange and then donate it via Act Blue back to these Democrats that voted for the funding. And that's how they got these bloated, campaign funds. That's how they got rich. And you see all these Democrats that are getting millions of dollars off of a $200,000 a year salary. That is how. They vote for foreign aid funding, then that foreign aid funding comes back to them through kickbacks via Act Blue, and that was just one of the ways. And that's why Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested, but it's also why nobody is allowed to actually talk to him about anything that matters. And what I will say is I'm right with Elon Musk. I'm right there with him that they will kill him if he reveals too much. Now, he might know a lot more than he's saying, but he can't reveal too much because honestly, these people will blow up the world before they actually go to jail. These people have access to nuclear weapons. These are the people that run the world, James, and they will gladly kill everybody they have to stop themselves from going to prison.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's not forget that it's estimated there were 40 bioweapons labs in Ukraine, and that one of Putin's stated goals was to destroy the bioweapons research in Ukraine because, look, it was outlawed in the United States and under the Geneva Convention. You can't create viruses and pathogens that are likely to kill millions of people. So it's illegal to do it here, even though it was done it was done in your state, right? Raleigh, North Carolina. That was the lab, the main lab. So what they did when it was outlawed, they just shifted it overseas. Wuhan is the lab we know the most about, but that was one lab, Jack. There's 40 in Ukraine alone. Think about that, bro. Yeah, and you're right about Sam Bankman-Fried, but he was donating to both sides. I don't know if you happened to catch his interview with Tucker Carlson. It was pretty illuminating, and you're right, they didn't get into the details of the case, but he did say, he goes, look, one of the things most people don't know, I'm known as this Democrat donation fund, but I donated equally. By the end of my time before I got arrested, I was donating just as much of my money to Republicans, and I had very tight and close relationships with many Republicans. So it goes both ways. And you're right. All you have to do is look at congressional salaries and look at net worths, and every single one of them is worth 20 to 30 million. And I've told you the story about my personal friend, Billy Long, who's now the head of the IRS, by the way. He lives here in Springfield, Missouri. He was my congressman at 7th District. Used to eat at my restaurant all the time. Known him forever. He gets elected to Congress back in, what was it? I think it might have been 2016 when Trump first ran. He ran on a platform. His motto was fed up, and he's a fat guy. So it was kind of funny. I'm fed up with, pork barrel spending, all that. So I run into him a year later and I say, Billy, how's it going, man? Are you making, you're making change? Because that's what we want, Jack. You and I, we want Congress to go in there and take names and, numbers like Elon's doing right now. And he shook his head and he goes, James, the system is so corrupt. It's so deep. He goes, I can't do anything. And he became known as this fat cat who just sucked up the government. He gave up and he just acquiesced and became a deep state member. It's disgusting, but that's the way it works, Jack.
And you're right. That is the way it works, and I think that's the problem. A lot of the wide-eyed freshmen congressmen that go in, they want to make a difference. They want to help, but when they get there, they see that in order to help, you have to play the game, and then eventually you get to the point now where they have all this dirt on you and all the things that you've done. Because everybody's done things in their life that they don't want people to know about. Everybody's got secrets, so and let's say you're a squeaky clean person that has no secrets since you were born. You have no problems. Everything's out in the open. So what they'll do is they'll create things. There are times where they can actually, plant cocaine in your room and have you arrested. Say, okay, we're going to keep this quiet. Things like that, where they make sure that, there's a way they can always blackmail you. There's always something. And then once they see that they can't make a difference because they're only one vote and everybody else is already blackmailed or bought off or whatever, that's when they start going along with it. And they say, okay, if I'm going to be here, since I can't make a difference, I might as well get rich or, whatever it is, because they're offering you, millions and millions of dollars. Then, that's just the way, you become a member of the deep state. And then before you know it, you're in deep and there's no way out. And that's what a lot of the congressmen that want to go into, people that want to go into Congress don't understand, is that it is so deeply entrenched that you can't make a difference right now. But if you can do things, if you can get a president in there that can make a difference, because the president can make a difference. In Congress, you only have one vote. There's only so much you can do. But when you're the president, you are the head of the government. You can make a difference. And he can appoint people like an Elon Musk that can do a Doge that can make a difference. And one of the things I wanted to say with your Ukraine biolabs thing, you're absolutely right. And once they were exposed, and once they found out that Putin actually wanted to get to these Ukraine biolabs so he can have the evidence to prove that the United States was the one that actually manufactured COVID, took it over to the Wuhan lab to release in China. They moved all of those bioweapons labs. They are now in Africa. Those bioweapon labs are not gone. They are now in Africa. For anybody that wants to know, the next thing that could be released, and this is just rumors that I've been hearing, that they are taking things from Africa and want to release it somewhere in Russia to blame on Putin. So if you want the next pandemic, look for it to come out of Russia via the United States.
Do you know what? I'm just curious. Do you know what country in Africa?
That I do not know. All I know is that it was somewhere in West Africa, I believe.
It's interesting. I've been listening to, I know this sounds crazy, but I spent several hours listening to some recent African history because it's so salient. But we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I did want to say about the congressional grift. One of the guys was in your home state, Madison Cawthorn, right? Mm-hmm. I think he's from the 11th district in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And he exposed this guy, I think he's a paraplegic, right? Mm-hmm. He exposed that in the first few months of being in Congress, he was invited to these cocaine-fueled, prostitute-ridden orgies among members of Congress. I mean, it's so sick, Jack. It's like the thing we talked about last week about the the chat rooms on NSA, and their diaper fetish and all this, just insane, so immoral. Look, we've said it before. We ended the show last week. This is a fight between good and evil. We're only 2 months in. This is going to take a very long time to root it all out. I just think every week, Jack, we're going to be astounded at the stuff coming out. I mean, we're at the tip of the iceberg. What we're seeing, it's a very dangerous game. Like you said, Jack, these people will not give up power easily.
No, power never gives up power. So they're going to do whatever it takes. And these drug-filled orgies that he was talking about, that's one of the ways that they blackmail you. They get you into these types of situations, and then if you're not able to be bought, you will be blackmailed. And that's the way it goes in Congress, and that's the way, that Congress is run. And that's why a lot of the things do not get done. They could have easily, we've had, most people don't know this, but we've actually had the Office of Government Accountability for years, but it's never held the government accountable because they're in it just like Congress is. They are blackmailed or bought or whatever it is. And when everybody has dirt, nobody there will trust you unless you have dirt on you. And then once you have dirt on you, they've got you. They can have you for life. So but I want to switch gears real quick, James, because one of the things I wanted to talk about is how I personally believe, and I have not figured out the motive yet. Maybe you can figure out the motive, but I personally believe that the Democrat congressmen and Democrat people are trying to destroy the Democrat Party, their own party. Now, the reason I believe this is because they do things like introduce the most insane legislation where, you have to have condom vending machines in preschools, or, men can't ejaculate, or they'll go to prison if they masturbate and ejaculate because they're not procreating. They have to have sex with the intention of procreating. That is one of the new laws that Democrats have put out there. And I can't remember which state it was, but you can look that up, that men will actually go to prison if they ejaculate without the intention of procreating. Now, these are some of the laws that Democrats are putting out there. Then you see what they do with the State of the Union address. I don't know how many people I have seen from the Democrat Party say, I am leaving the party because of what they did at the State of the Union. Not only did they interrupt Trump numerous times, they heckled, but then they would not stand for a 13-year-old boy that overcame cancer in a beautiful moment. They would not stand for Laken Riley's family after she was killed by the illegal immigrants. But they did stand and clap for when he mentioned Ukraine funding. Why? Because that is where they get their money from. That is what goes straight into their pockets, and that's all they care about. Now, after that, Al Green was censured for his role in that and getting removed, right? So then the Democrats started chanting and blocking the aisle during his censure vote. And all these things add up together. It looks like they are trying to blatantly destroy their party. Now, I don't have a motive for this because honestly, what could the motive be? But the things that they're doing are blatantly destroying the party. I mean, they can see, they're not stupid. They can see the writing on the wall. They can see the polls where it says 80% of the people disagree with all the shit they're doing, but yet they're still doing it anyway. And they go worse. They go further. They go more insane. So tell me, James, to me, it seems like these people are trying to destroy their own party. Can you think of a motive for this?
Well, this is going kind of deep, but yeah, one motive might be that this is the deep state cabal's plan all along. There is some pushback on the whole Trump, Musk, Doge, everything that Trump's trying to do, that actually he's just another deep state actor. And look, I have to say, and Jack, you've raised my hackles on this very issue, like with the Epstein files and Pam Bondi. Trump is really, really closely tied to the Benjamin Netanyahu regime in Israel, and it concerns me because, look, we know Epstein we don't need to relitigate this because we've talked about it, but we know he was working for Mossad, right? Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad confidant agent and introduced them. But I wonder, because look, and I am not like Ian Carroll. I know you know who Ian Carroll is, and he was just on Rogan. I am not an Ian Carroll conspiracy theorist that believes the Jews are behind everything. I think that's kind of nonsensical. But I do think the state of Israel, I have nothing against the Jewish people and nothing but love for them, but I think the state of Israel, the military industrial complex in Israel, the Mossad, the intel agencies, and their ties with the CIA and the U.S. military industrial complex have been behind some very nefarious activities, including 9/11. 9/11 reeks to high heaven of Israeli involvement. We know that. Now, so Trump now is tied at the hip, it seems like, to Benjamin Netanyahu. He's sending all kinds of aid to Israel, not aid to military. He's given them carte blanche, whatever they want to wipe out Hamas. He's told Hamas he will wipe them out personally if they don't release these hostages. I'm concerned. What if, bring it back, circle back, as Jen used to say, what if the plan all along was to get everybody on board? Oh, Trump, the great white hat, the great savior, the golden age of America is back. But really, the deep state aims that they've wanted all along are taking place behind the scenes. And if this is true, one thing we need to look for, there's one check box that hasn't been marked off of the neocons list of goals, and that's war with Iran. If Israel and or the United States in any manner goes to war with Iran, I'm going to then come out and say, look, there's something really fishy going on. I don't know. It's kind of a crazy idea, but who knows, Jack?
And it's funny you say this. Now, I'm gonna do a little preamble and preface this by saying that I am a Trump supporter, and I did a lot to help get Trump elected, as did you. We did our part and helped to get him elected because we believe in Trump. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a moment and say, what if James is right? What if we're at the point where the Democrat Party, the deep state actually in general, what if it's not the Democrat Party that they wanted to make the one-party state? What if it's the Republican Party that they wanted to make the one-party state? They get Trump, they get someone in there who looks like he's doing something, he gets Elon Musk, then the Democrat Party destroys themselves to where, that party, will never win anything again. And then all of a sudden the Republican Party seems to win everything, but then the next person that comes in, not Trump, but the next person that comes in, ends up being the one that does, radical policies just like the Democrats did. But now they have their one-party state. They have their one-party state, and they can implement any policy that they want now. They have a supermajority in the House, the Senate, the presidency, all because of Trump appearing to do good things, and then the Democrat Party appearing to implode and destroy itself. Now, honestly, the deep state people don't give them enough credit. They're brilliant. They're filled with brilliant people, and they do play chess. They play the world like a chess game. And honestly, if you're going to make a one-party state where everybody hates the Democrats, they're one of the most hated parties in the history of the world. So how are you going to make? I mean, even importing all those illegal voters isn't going to help, when it comes to making them a one-party state. But if you get a party that's doing great, that everybody thinks is doing what it's supposed to do, that's actually helping the people for the first time in history, I mean, come on, a Doge that's going to actually do all this stuff for the first time in history, then you get the other party that destroy itself. All of a sudden, you have a one-party state that can do whatever it wants, James. So if you want the truth, I still support Trump, and I think Trump's, as far for right now, I think everything is going the way we hoped it would go. However, there are some things that raise my antennas. One is the Democrat Party destroying itself almost purposely and actively destroying itself. And the other are blatantly disregarded promises, such as the Epstein files with Pam Bondi, and then all of a sudden it's totally forgotten. She said, by the way, we did get the truckload. By the way, the head of the New York bureau is gone. But then all of a sudden it's out of the news and you never hear about it again. I mean, it's just, these kind of things raise your antenna. And am I a Trump supporter? 100%. But on this podcast here on Secret America, we are not an echo chamber. We do not say, go Trump, go. Anything you do, anybody you appoint is 100% can do no wrong in our eyes. We don't do that. Here, we question everything. The main reason that you see us talk about Democrats and the evil that they do most often is because they are the party that does all the horrible shit. But there are rhinos and other Republicans that do horrible things. However, whenever we see something questionable on either side, we will call it out, James.
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the things you can look at immediately is look at the proposed budget that Speaker Mike Johnson's put forward. I mean, wait a minute. We're supposed to be cutting the budget. You got to remember that the annual deficit back before COVID, I think was, and I might be wrong, but just bear with me, $1 trillion to $2 trillion. During immediately following COVID, it rose to $7 trillion. And they've now, since COVID's been over, they haven't adjusted it, Jack. How could $5 trillion more dollars still be going on? The proposed budget, they're patting themselves on the back because over a 10-year period, they're saying that they're cutting $600 billion over 10 years. Are you freaking kidding me? It should be cut by $4 trillion overnight, and they're not doing it. The game's being played, Jack. I mean, I really have a lot of questions, and you're so right about the Epstein files just dropping out of the news, and that's why we're not going to let it. And a lot of our friends and followers on Twitter feel the same way. I see people posting every day, where's the file? And it's, once again, it's not the files, it's the videotapes and the hard drives.
Yeah, but by files, we mean everything. Yeah.
Right. It's the mountain of evidence. Now, I saw something on Twitter today that an inside source said, now I don't have confirmation of this, it's supposition, that the videotapes and the hard drive are still in an underground basement in Manhattan underneath the FBI offices in Manhattan, that has not been released. It's still there. Everybody knows it. I don't know, Jack. I'm concerned. And this has been the greatest presidency in my lifetime so far, 2 months. And like you, I'm 100% behind Trump. I'm behind Doge. But boy, they had better follow through with this stuff because we won't let them forget, Jack.
No, we definitely won't. And even Tim Burchett, even Senator Tim Burchett even said that the same thing that I did. He actually said that Congressman, Tim Burchett. He said the same thing that I did, that he believes that these files don't exist anymore. He believes that anything that does come out would be doctored and you can't trust it. So, I mean, that's the thing. Even if something does come out, you wouldn't be able to trust if it's real or not at this point. It's been so many years since this has happened. You know how many chances they've had to doctor and destroy things? So, Congressman Burchett is right. I personally believe the files don't exist anymore. And then you've got Pam Bondi saying she got a truckload of these files, which I don't think they exist. So, who's lying? What's going on here? I would like to know. But I want to switch gears real quick, James, because you know how we talked about how Joe Biden was not running the country in his presidency. You know how he had the whole mental incapacity thing. He was
Right.
basically just a zombie. So it has been revealed by the House Oversight Committee. Now don't get me wrong, nothing's going to come of this and nothing is going to happen, but it has been revealed that everything that he signed, every bill that he signed, every pardon that he committed may actually all be void. And we may be able to void these pardons, the pardon on his son, the pardon on Fauci, pardon on everybody, because every single one were auto pen signatures. None of these things were signed by him. If you look at every single signature, they are literally exactly the same, down to the pen blots, down to the shape and the size. They are the exact same signature on every single bill, every single pardon, everything, because they are auto penned, meaning that all they have to do is go in there and hit sign. They press the sign button and it signs. So he didn't actually sign any of this shit. The only thing that he signed, James, was his resignation letter, his falling out of the, dropping out of the race. That has his actual signature on it. You can go on there and see that it has its actual signature on it. And for anybody that wants to see what I'm talking about, all you have to do is go to, let me find it real quick. Okay, all you have to do is go to Kyle Becker. He did a tweet yesterday that says, House Oversight Project finds the Biden presidency was almost entirely run by auto pen signature. They say, we gathered every document we could find with Biden's signature over the course of his presidency. All use the same auto pen signature except for the announcement that the former president was dropping out of the race last year. They have a picture of his auto pen signature on all the documents. Then they have a picture of his signature that he did on his dropping out of the race form last year. And you can clearly see that he did not sign a single law. He did not sign a single pardon, which means they should all be void because they have to have ink to paper signatures. They cannot be auto signed on computer because then anybody could do it. Hell, I could sign his name on anything I want because it's auto signed. So James, you tell me. We know that his presidency, is illegitimate at the very least, was illegitimate. Now we know that the entire time he was doing it, it could have been his staffers, it could have been the deep state, anybody could have been signing these laws and pardons. Should those things be void? And do you think a court of law would actually void, let's say the Supreme Court, because it would end up going to them. Do you think they would void these pardons because they're not actual ink signatures, James? What do you think?
No. No, because you've got what's her name on the Supreme Court now, who's turned out to be a total
Barrett,
loser.
yeah, she
Amy
unbelievable.
Coney Barrett, total loser, liberal Democrat hack, just like John Roberts. That, and I don't mean to switch gears, but I know you've always said, Jack, you've made this point vociferously many times that the Supreme Court is, the last vestige. It's the last thing that could save our ass in a constitutional crisis. Well, now we learned Amy Coney Barrett. Did you know that she was Mitch McConnell's pick? That she is the one that he pushed through because he had helped Trump get these other guys through, right? He came to Trump and said, this is who I want on there. And look what she's turned out to be. She's a neocon.
Did you see her look at the State of the Union address when she looked at him as he walked by? She looked at him with disgust and anger. Yep. It was unbelievable. That's when you knew she was the vote. Since it's how it's a nine Supreme Court seats, right? Yeah. She is always the tie-breaking vote. She was the one that broke the tie that said Trump has to release the foreign aid, the $2 billion in USA.
I know.
She basically made that decision.
I know.
And she's his nominee.
This happens regularly on the Supreme Court where you think, look, this is the deep state at play in action. They appear to be the kind of person that you want on the court. You can't ever predict it, though. This has happened many times in history where someone was thought to have a certain set of ideals and a paradigm that you agreed with. They get on the court and suddenly they shift. I mean, John Roberts is a Bush appointee, and although he votes the right way, what we consider to be the right way most of the time, on some of the biggest issues like the ACA, the Obamacare mandate, that he voted that it wasn't a tax, because if it was a tax, the legislation would have been null and void. So he made that vote. So, oh, no, this isn't a tax. So it just, yeah, I'm very disappointed in that, Jack, because you yourself have made the point, hey, if all comes to hell, at least we got the Supreme Court. It appears now that maybe we don't.
You're right. And, what I was thinking is, and this would cut both ways, because it would be good for us now, but, come the time of the end of Trump's presidency, it could be bad for us for the next president. But, Trump could outright ignore these rulings. I mean, what are they going to do? You can't, they themselves have said that he has immunity for official acts. So they can't throw him in jail for doing, these official acts. So, I mean, what could they do if he straight up ignores their rulings?
Well, and the other thing is, you know what? He is 5 steps ahead of him in the chessboard. And I say he's really surrounded himself with a brilliant legal team. I mean, let's take, for example, this credit card issue that the Elon Musk Doge team and Trump had canceled credit cards for all these federal employees, because said, look, they're not authorized to spend all this money. A lower court judge ruled, no, you can't do that. You have to give these bureaucrats their credit cards. So Trump gave them, not Trump, but the administration gave them their cards back, but put a $1 spending limit on the cards. So it's like the Gulf of America thing. People think Trump did that as vanity. We've talked about it. No, he did it because Joe Biden had outlawed oil exploration in the Gulf of Mexico. So by changing the name, he can bypass that executive order immediately. Yes, we're going to need legislation to shore this up, but in the short term, we can go drill for oil and gas in the Gulf of America. So even though, Coney Barrett has said, no, you have to give this foreign aid, there's other ways around it. I mean, what if they just change what if they put some earmark that this aid has to go here or there? I don't know. They're a lot smarter than I am, Jack. I think they'll figure it out.
No, you're absolutely right. They do, they have a great legal team that, it's really all semantics. That's all law really is semantics, if there's one word, and that's what the Supreme Court does, is they interpret semantics. The Constitution is written with words, written in legalese and certain words. And then the Supreme Court, they interpret that, which is, that's all semantics is words, that you interpret that could mean one thing or another, or may not mean anything depending on what that word is. So that's all the law is. So I mean, if you can change a word, like if this says, okay, you're not allowed to tax these people, instead of calling it a tax, you call it a penalty, like the Obamacare thing, and that's all you have to do to get around things. There are many, many loopholes, especially when a law is so specific. If there's a law that's specific, you can get around that easily. Now, if it's a vague law that puts everything under an umbrella, then obviously it's much harder to get around. But like I said, the president, if he wanted to, he could outright ignore the Supreme Court. They themselves have said that he has official immunity, full immunity for official acts. So if he ignored them and went ahead and kept the foreign aid frozen, that's something he's done under his official, acts as presidency. What are they going to do? They sure as hell, they can't do anything, because they gave him the immunity for that. So, I mean, if he wanted to, he could ignore that. He could ignore lower courts. And as long as he keeps it within the official capacity of his job, there is nothing that they can do to stop him. So if I'm Trump, I just do what the hell I think is right, despite court rulings. I say, screw the court rulings. I have immunity based on official acts. Now, I'm not going to do anything that breaks the law, because then I don't know if that would be considered official act. I guess it all depends. But if this is under my authority and I am allowed to do this based on precedent or anything else, I'm going to go ahead and do it and say, screw the courts. I have the immunity ruling right here. I'd keep it taped to my chest so everybody could read it as I walk by. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it's funny, I was just, we're talking about how there's always some way around these legal things. I was just looking something up a little bit earlier about what Donald Trump has just done, listen to this. This is from Benjamin Weingartner. The Trump administration has issued a new memorandum aimed at combating those seeking universal injunctions against its halt of policies. These are these judges. It is the policy of the United States to demand that parties seeking injunctions, which is what these judges rule, they'll file an injunction, or the plaintiffs will file an injunction against, say, giving foreign aid. So the policy, the party seeking injunctions against the federal government must cover the costs and damages incurred if the government is ultimately found to have been wrongly enjoined to restrain. Federal courts should hold litigants accountable for their misrepresentations and ill-granted injunctions. So this is brilliant. Trump has the executive power to do this, to say that if you're going to file a lawsuit, and let's just take the foreign aid thing that the Supreme Court just ruled about, and says that, no, you can't file that anymore. Well, if this harms the United States, you, the plaintiff that filed the lawsuit, is now responsible for the damages, and you have to put up a bond beforehand to cover those costs. And it could be billions. Another brilliant stroke by Trump's legal team to stop this wasteful, stupid lawfare that lower courts are engaging in.
You're absolutely right. So it's an excellent and brilliant move, and he has many of those up his sleeve, I'm sure, because for the last 4 years he's had nothing to do but plan. So that's brilliant. I want to switch gears real quick, James. Have you seen the protests that have been taking place at Tesla, where you got the transgender people bombing Tesla factories or smashing their windows and all this stuff, just because the media tells them things about Elon Musk that are actually not true? Which is why they need to start watching Secret America if they want the truth. Because I can tell you the news is lying to them via propaganda, and that's what gets them so riled up. So you bomb a Tesla factory, you put bombs in there, you smash their windows. Well, listen to this, James. This has just come out, and it also makes me think that the Democrats were not only behind the Tesla protests and the bombings and all that, but they were also behind the BML protests and all the destruction. You know how they went out and said, they were encouraging the destruction of cities during the George Floyd protests, and they didn't do anything about it in their own cities. Well, listen to this. Act Blue, the Democrat donation platform, is behind the Tesla protests. So listen to this. It actually says that, and James, you're muted at the moment if you're trying to talk, by the way. It says an investigation has revealed that 5 groups funded by Act Blue, namely Troublemakers, Disruption Project, Rise and Resist, Indivisible Project, and Democratic Socialists of America, were involved in organizing protests against Tesla. These groups have received funding from donors such as George Soros, Reid Hoffman, Herbert Sandler, and Patrick Bowman through Act Blue. The protests have sparked widespread reactions and calls for accountability, which we both know won't happen. You can forget about accountability. I don't even know why people call for it anymore. But it proves that the Democrats and Act Blue, the deep state in general, have been the ones that have been behind these protests, and Act Blue has been the one that through all these protests have been funded, James. This Act Blue should be labeled a terrorist organization.
Yeah, I don't disagree, of course, but it looks like we're on them. Like I said, the 10 of the highest leaders of Act Blue have already resigned. They're running for the hills, Jack. It's being exposed. It's a massive money laundering scheme. I understand now. Here's the other motive. You asked me at the start of the show, what would be the motive for the Democrats to destroy themselves? And I said, well, maybe it's because the deep state, the Republican Party's the new cabal. But what if this is the motive, Jack? They're all freaking guilty. They've all received money through this, what they know to be an illegal process of money laundering through campaign donations that go from overseas to arms sales to drug sales to the mafia, the underworld, and eventually back into their campaign coffers and eventually into their personal checking accounts. They're all freaking guilty. And that's why they have nothing left but to forget Act Blue. They're acting up. They're acting like idiots. They don't know what else to do. I think they're freaking. I mean, they are totally freaking. Look, there was one congressman, I can't remember his name, went into Congress the day he was elected. He was $40,000 in the hole. His net worth was a negative 40,000.
That's Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, that's right. What was it? 2 years later, he's worth 30 million. I mean,
Yep.
give me a freaking break. Nobody does, even with the stock picks, even with the insider trading, you still don't do that, Jack. These monies are coming from somewhere else. I think they're freaking out. I think they're about to get caught. It's going to take some time, but the cases are being built. These cases aren't built overnight. Cash has been in office, 2 weeks at the most? It'll happen. It might be a year from now where we see the first arrest, but it will happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, I sure hope that there is, accountability, because that's what we need right now more than anything. That's the only thing that's going to, give people trust in the government again. That's the only thing that's going to give people trust in anything that has to do with the government, whether it's law enforcement or anything, because accountability is the thing that we've been lacking. Nobody was held accountable during the Biden administration, and nobody on our side or nobody on our side has been holding the other side accountable, and that's what really bothers me. But as far as Kash Patel goes, you're right about, he's only been in office for, a couple of weeks, but he has started at least to do big things that I know that the Biden administration wouldn't do. For example, he put out a tweet, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, where he said, "I can now report that today the FBI, along with our interagency partners led by Pam Bondi, arrested 2 active duty U.S. Army soldiers and 1 former U.S. Army soldier for theft of government property and a bribery scheme. These individuals have been charged with stealing America's defense intelligence capabilities and empowering adversaries like China in betrayal of our country." And that seems to be a thing that is going around here, especially with the CIA saying, a lot of those people saying, "Oh, we're going to leave and sell all of our secrets to China or as some other intelligence agency." It's good to see that they're holding some of these people accountable. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I mean, it's a small arrest. I was
Very small, yes.
Yeah, I was happy to see it. It just means that they're doing the right thing. I think these other investigations are going to be huge, Jack. They're going to take millions of dollars, thousands of man hours, and a long time. It's just not going to happen overnight. I mean, you think about it. Some of the Whitewater, excuse me, not Whitewater, although that scandal was investigated for years, but the Watergate scandal really happened over a period of 3 years. And, it just doesn't happen overnight. So we need to be a little bit patient, but let's switch gears, Jack. And I want to do is we're getting close to our time, but I want to do Clary's conspiracy corner, if I could, and tell you a little story that really ties into a lot of what we're talking about. And the story is based on a book by Ed Haslam called Dr. Mary's Monkey. Are you familiar with that book, by the way?
No. It sounds like a children's book.
I know, right? All right. So let me give you the quick overview of this and then tie it into why it's so important to what we're talking about today. So this book was a journey to uncover a conspiracy. It connects the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the spread of a cancer-causing virus, and the development of biological weapons. And it begins with the mysterious death of Dr. Mary Sherman. This all took place in New Orleans, Jack. And if you remember Oswald's movie, JFK, remember where all that took place? Jim Garrison, the prosecutor down there, was in New Orleans. So Mary Sherman was found in her apartment. Her arm was literally burnt off, the bones, everything gone. And half of her rib cage on that same side was exposed. It had been burnt off. And she had been stabbed and she'd been raped. And she was lying in her bed in her apartment. How does her arm get burned off? Because the bed wasn't burnt. That's a long story in itself, but it leads to the figure of David Ferrie, who was prominent in Oliver Stone's film JFK. He was a CIA operative and a pilot who was connected to Mary Sherman and Lee Harvey Oswald. Ferrie and Oswald were taking mice to the lab of Dr. Mary Sherman because what they were trying to do, Jack, is develop an uber cancer, this fast-acting cancer that would literally kill you within weeks instead of years. So they would inject, what they do is grind up monkey liver cells. That's why it's called Dr. Mary's monkey. They would grind up liver cells that monkeys that had cancer, then inject it into mice. So the faster the mouse died, they knew they were on the right track. And Lee Harvey Oswald literally delivered thousands of mice to Mary Sherman's lab. And I mean, this is just so crazy. But then, and I'll try and wrap this up as quickly as I can, but then you get the polio vaccine came into it, because that was all developed within New Orleans and these medical institutions that were in New Orleans. And the first polio vaccine, Jack, was infected with these monkey cancer causing cells. And that's why you see this huge spike in cancers in people my age. But I mean, by the end of the story, it was just this web of conspiracy. It connects the Kennedy assassination, because they were trying, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, they were trying to develop this cancer for one reason: to kill Castro. They were going to somehow get it in his food and have him get this cancer. Well, you know who did get this cancer and die within 2 weeks of diagnosis? A little guy named Jack Ruby. You may have heard of him. He's the one who shot Lee Harvey. He goes into jail, and all of a sudden he's diagnosed with cancer, and he's dead like 10 days later. It's crazy. And all of these bioweapons in this research that grew, a lot of this grew out of this New Orleans lab in the 60s. And anyone that hasn't read Dr. Mary's Monkey, I highly encourage you to read it, because it really is at the root of a lot of the issues that we face today.
Wow. Yeah. No, that is very interesting. And yeah, that does sound like it would be a good read. And yeah, wow, that's some interesting stuff
crazy,
there, you know,
man. It's a crazy story. It really is. It just, when I read it, it blew my mind. I actually had the honor to interview Ed Haslam a few years back. But I mean, people don't, you know, the whole JFK murder, and we're going to get the papers. Much of it had to do with Cuba. People know that, and Castro, right? I mean, because JFK was negotiating with the Soviet Union behind the scenes for a peace deal. You know, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was the CIA and their rogue elements that wanted to kill Castro. The rogue elements were the mob, because people are, why would the mob be involved? Because their casinos were taken over and shut down. Their biggest money stream was in Havana. They had dozens of casinos that were pouring tens of millions of dollars into the mafia's pocket. So Castro, communist revolution, takes over. He shut them down. So yes, the mob and the CIA, they've been working together forever, and they are the ones that killed Kennedy. And Lee Harvey Oswald was involved in New Orleans, and it ties into the cancer research and Jack Ruby getting killed with it. It is once again, these conspiracies are so deep, it's hard to summarize in a 60-second, diatribe, but it's fascinating to me. It's why I love the history, Jack. It usually ties into everything we're talking about today.
You're right. That is fascinating. And, you know, a lot of dark things that are happening out there, but they are fascinating. So, yeah, definitely, you know, check out that book. Something on the lighter side of news that I found comical, you know, and hopefully you will too. So we know how, I don't know if you know Angel Reese. She is a forward, you know, in the WNBA. She's the highly racist, black female. Yep. Yeah, and she is insufferable, because she's very racist towards, for some reason her name is drawing a blank. What's her name? The white
Caitlin
female
Clark.
superstar.
Caitlin Clark.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So she's been highly racist towards her, and Caitlin Clark just takes it and says, "Yeah, you're right. You know, you should be making as much as I do, or you should be getting credit too, even though, you know, the only reason anybody tunes into the WNBA was to watch Caitlin Clark."
Right.
But what I will say is this is comical to me when I saw it. The WNBA players, led by Angel Reese, are considering striking if they don't get the money that they want. And the thing that made this so comical to me is the WNBA. First of all, why would you let Angel Reese, a person that everybody hates, be the head of this as WNBA players? Second, the WNBA loses $40 million a year. They don't make any money. They lose $40 million. And the NBA, it's basically a charity project that the NBA does just because they want to be politically correct and allow women to play basketball.
Right.
So it's a charity project. Really, these women should be volunteering because they're sure as hell not making any money for, the NBA. And they're losing money, in fact. But, the comical thing is that they think that by striking and having they think by striking they're going to get more money, when in fact, they're losing money as it is. They might as well not be playing because they're already losing all the money. It was very comical.
It would save the NBA $40 million if they went on strike.
You're right. In fact, if they strike, that might be the first profit the WNBA has.
It's such a joke. We're laughing. It's so sad. We both like sports, and we both love the NBA. I'm a huge Warriors fan, and just mainly because I became a Steph Curry fan in the NCAA when he was at Davidson. I just thought, wow, this guy's different. My son was playing varsity basketball at the time, and so he got me into it. I was a kid growing up. I was massive NBA, and then in the 80s and early 90s, I just got sick of the BS. Although, I don't want to get too off track. There's a Netflix documentary. It's called Untold. And then they have different story. They tell a story, but it's always titled Untold. Look up the one, I think it's called Melee at the Palace or something like that. It's about, you remember that game?
Yeah, I remember the fight between the Pistons and the Pacers.
Yes. And it was portrayed in the media that these thug NBA players, these overpaid, arrogant thugs went and beat up fans. The truth was totally the opposite. It blew my mind. The fans started it, and the NBA players were totally screwed. Ron Artest was the main one. He got screwed in that deal, but that's another story, Jack. You're right. The whole WNBA, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. Have you watched some of the videos of Angel Reese just missing like layups? And
she's awful. And Caitlin Clark was a superstar at her school, and then she came into the WNBA and is getting tripled. She is the only, and I do mean the only person that people would tune into a WNBA game to watch. But then you have this black player saying, she's getting all this press because she's white.
White,
yet the white woman is the best player probably in women's basketball history, which isn't saying much, but probably, she's the best player in women's basketball history. But you got, again, a black person, saying that a white person is getting something because they're white, and I get tired. I don't want black racism any more than I want white racism. I don't want racism at all. Angel Reese thinks she should be getting more of this, even though she's not half the player Caitlin Clark is. I just found it comical because I saw Angel Reese and I saw Strike. And when I saw Angel Reese and Strike, that did make me chuckle out loud because I'm thinking, if they do go on strike and shut down WNBA operations, that would actually make the NBA $40 million a year because then they wouldn't be losing the $40 million. I mean, hell, I wouldn't pay them more to go back. I'd be like, hey, if you want to strike, if you want to kill your league, that's on you. This is basically a charitable project at this point.
Yeah, I'm just so sick of the whole thing. Who's the most beloved golfer in the world? Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make the argument Arnold Palmer or Jack Nicklaus, but I'm talking really in recent history. Tiger Woods, who's the most considered the GOAT in the NBA, the most beloved player of all time? Michael Jordan.
Jordan, easily, yeah.
Those are two black men, Jack. This whole black-white thing just pisses me off because I have no hate for anybody based on their skin color.
I hate Angel Reese.
Yeah, I loathe Angel Reese, but it has nothing to do with the way she looks. Let me put it that way. It's what comes out of her mouth. It's the same thing. And I don't want to go, we know we got to wrap up, but have you seen the videos of Jasmine Crockett where she's
my God, she is more racist than Angel Reese.
No. But wait, have you seen the videos where she's caught years ago talking
proper,
super proper white manner? And then in Congress, she puts on this ghetto thing. It's all an act. And I think
this hood rat,
Yeah,
she does that to reach the voters in her district because, did you know she actually went to private school? She went to private schools her entire life.
Think how insulting that is, Jack, that she thinks the way to reach them is to talk down to them.
And they don't realize this. They vote for her because they think, oh, she's a hood sister. She's one of me. They don't realize that she's actually making fun of you by doing this.
Right. Yeah, it's infuriating. I'm just so sick of the whole race thing. And hopefully I think it's turning its head. I do think we're moving the other direction. And let's leave it at that, my friend, Jack Danger. He is Jack Danger. I'm James Clary. You've been listening to Secret America. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Secret America with Jack Danger and James Clary.
All right.
Why don't you just